Okay, good afternoon. This is CloudChartist. I'm sorry, I just got home myself after being out playing some tennis, and I have like a half hour before the market opens, and you all realize once the market opens, the new weekly candles open, which screws everything up, so I need to do this right now. I'm sorry for the lack of notice, but if you can always watch the archive later. If you're here hearing me say this, then you're not tuning in late. You're here right now. I see that I see some fresh commenters in my chat here. Anyway, I'm going to get going. So let's start off with the crude. This is the weekly chart of crude from. This is last week's candle here. Apologies to anyone who's new, doesn't realize I don't have a cursor for some reason. Oh, I actually don't even have a crosshair. Here we go. I don't have a cursor. There's some bug in the broadcasting software that disallows me from having cursors. But I do have crosshairs, so hopefully you can see the crosshairs here. They're centered on this current weekly candle, but they don't need to be, so I'm going to move them out of the way. So we see that price action closed last week at 59.26. That's right around the level that I had marked over here from this area where price found support and looked like it was going to reverse to the upside and then continue to sell off. So I think it's an interesting level right here. But so overall, the crude is still bearish. It's under the cloud, under the Kijun Sen. It is holding the support of the Tenkan-sen, however, and the Tenkan-sen is tipping up, reflecting this upward momentum. So chances are the Tenkan-sen should continue to provide support. So I'm still looking for the Kijun-sen as a target to the upside. The Kijun-sen is lower this week than it was last week. It's at 63.33 right now. So it's a potential. If we do continue higher, we should find resistance at 63.33. Unless we don't continue higher, which it is also always a possibility. But from now on, we're in an uptrend, so there's no reason to think that we won't continue higher. There's just a small topping tail on this candle. So even though crude is overall bearish, it looks like we can potentially expect higher prices to 63.33 and then probably find resistance there. And when the new candle opens up, it could be already, I'm sorry, when the new candle opens up this, in a few minutes at 6, we could see the Kijun Sen open lower as well. In that case, it will be resistance at whatever level the Kijun Sen is at then. All right, I'm going to leave crude and move over to the ES. ES is still completely bullish over the cloud, over the Tenkan-sen. Chikou is free to go higher. This red line over here on the left representing price, time shifted 26 periods into the past. We do have a slightly tipping up Tenkan-sen still after we got some selling that came down and tested the Tenkan-sen and then bounced. This is a bullish hammer. So this is actually an outside candle because the high is higher than the previous candle's high and the low is lower than the previous candle's low. So technically we're still in an uptrend because the trend has not changed due to the outside candle. We do have the Kijun Sen coming up here, so there is potential for a bear cross, but until we see that happen, it's just potential. So overall, the ES is still fully bullish, and we did put in a new high last week before we closed in the top third of the candle. So, even though it felt pretty bearish certain times there last week, overall in the weekly, it's not. Let's go look at the NASDAQ. I'm going to go through the index charts pretty fast because they all look sort of the same. Another hammer off the Tenkan-sen. Bullish, made a new high. Let's look at the Russell. Russell's a little bit less bullish. We see that we closed under the Tenkan-sen on the Russell. We came down and almost tested the Kijun Sen below, but not quite. did put in a close under the Tenkan-sen. So if we do get further selling, we should find some support at the Kijun-sen, which is currently at 1202.70. If we get higher prices, then we'll have resistance at 1240.40. But if we get over 1240.40, then the Tenkan-sen should support price. We do have this lower, flatter, cloud, quicksandy type area potential for selling off towards that I mention every week. Okay, let's look at the Dow quickly. Dow is still fully bullish, and we did get a close over the Tenkan-sen with this nice hammer candle. Similar, the Tenkan-sen has gone flat, so it could attract price back towards it, which is, if it does, it should offer support. If it doesn't offer support, we can look for support at the Kijun-sen, which is currently 176.16. I hope you guys can hear me. It seems to be working on my end. I have my audio muted for obvious reasons. Looks like I have 6 viewers. Thanks for joining me, everybody. All right, let's look at gold. Gold. Well, a lot of people got long gold recently, and only to have it, they got long when it was ripping up over 1200. Only had to have it sell and put in a close below the Tenkan-sen, which is bearish. In fact, we closed under the Tenkan-sen last week, and I warned that it was bearish. But overall, the whole chart is still bearish. So until we get over the Tenkan-sen and over the Kijun-sen, I'm not going to change my opinion about the overall trend for gold. We could sell down to 1155 area, 1160 area again to test these prior lows. We could make new lows. Until we get back over the Tenkan-sen, I wouldn't consider buying gold unless you're scaling into some kind of, end of the world long position. Then you can buy whenever you want. But bearish for the gold. Let's look at silver. Had a lot of movement in silver last week. Some really fun rides there. So last week's candle was quite bearish, but we did actually have some very bullish activity. In fact, we broke over the Kijun-sen and the Tenkan-sen last week and put in a new high. So this silver actually has managed to change trend to the upside, as the last week's candle has a higher high and a higher low compared to the prior week. So the trend has changed. But we got a close not only under the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen, but in the middle of the prior week's candle. So that's a little bit of a concern as far as looking for an uptrend. We also see that the Chikou over here to the left, the red line, came up and tried to get through the candles, but was rejected and is stuck under the candles still. So next week, if the Chikou can get between these two candles and go up, it faces resistance at the Tenkan-sen here around 1690s, 1700 area. And in order for silver to go higher, it has to get over like 1633. Then we can look for maybe retest of this high or maybe even 17 area. But so for now, it's sideways until it really proves itself in either direction, in my opinion. Let's look at coffee. I know some of my members are interested and have been trading coffee. We see coffee is really in a big bear flag pattern. It came up last week and tried to get a close over the Tenkan-sen, and then or 2 weeks ago, and then last week was rejected from the Tenkan-sen and sold down to this below, actually not to the real prior lows, but below some other prior low support area. So it looks pretty bearish for coffee here unless it can get back over the Tenkan-sen at 138.05. Let's look at corn. Since we're in the C's, I haven't looked at it. I didn't really look at grains that much. Corn is, yeah, bearish cross here, and a new low after last week, after getting rejected from the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen. The only really, the Chikou is kind of trying to find support at the candles here, but it's not looking that good. The fact that it's running into a big bullish green candle is kind of nice, or helpful, or hopeful for bulls, as it might actually be able to redirect price back up towards it, like through it, but looks pretty bearish for corn here. So, and technically it is bearish in Ichimoku terms. Let's look at soybeans. Yeah, so soybeans got bought up and tested the Tenkan-sen, this flat Tenkan-sen up here at 991.75, and then got rejected lower. Not looking real bearish here. This is an outside candle with a higher high and a lower low. So technically we still have an uptrend here, but overall bearish in Ichimoku terms. Quickly look at wheat. Yep, more bearishness in the grain complex. And we got a new all-time low in wheat. At least new all-time low on this time frame. I'd have to drag out the monthly chart to see if it's really an all-time low, which I won't bore you with. Let's look at some bonds. Start off with a 30-year Treasury bonds. Very bearish week, great week. I had a nice week with the bonds and the notes last week. So we lost the Tenkan-sen at 160.27 and proceeded to continue to sell. I would suggest that we might sell even lower, see how things go at 155.21 on ZB, and then potentially 153.16. Kijun-sen could offer support unless we get a reversal. Overall, the chart is bullish, fully bullish, except for the fact that it's under the Tenkan-sen. So bond bulls really need to see a reversal in this area, or in the next, or maybe at 155.16, for prices to get back over the Tenkan-sen at 160.27. Otherwise, not looking that good for 30-year Treasury bond. Looking at the 10-year. Very bearish candle last week, broke through the Kijun-sen and the Tenkan-sen support. This is bear crossed Kijun-sen and Tenkan-sen. Looks likely that we could continue lower and to the be attracted by the flat cloud below at 127 area. If we see the Chikou span over here, the red line, it looks like it could just keep sliding down the cliff here. Could maybe find some support here, but that's not for a few more weeks. So yeah, I would not be surprised to see the 10-year come down and test the cloud at 127. In fact, that would be a nice trade. Let's look at, anyone have any requests? If you do, feel free to put them in the chat window, or I can look at my Twitter feed briefly and see if anybody said anything to me on Twitter. I don't see anything on Twitter. I feel like I'm missing something important. Let's look at the euro. Let's look at 6E for the euro. Yeah, so the euro put in a bullish bounce off the Tenkan-sen last week after being under the Tenkan-sen for quite a while prior to that. We could see price continue to appreciate to the 115.39 area, the downward facing Kijun-sen, but that should offer resistance. Kind of looks like the crude chart, right? We do have a topping tail, so that's of concern into this prior support turned resistance area. So that's of concern. Let's look at the So overall, the euro's still bearish, but it is above the Tenkan Sen, so that's slightly bullish. Let's look at the dollar. ES, hi Alan. Yeah, I went over ES earlier, so you can watch the archive if you don't mind. It'll be up in it shortly. You can start over from the beginning. ES is fully bullish on the weekly. All right, so looking at the dollar, we see that the dollar lost the Tenkan Sen support and came down, tried to find support at this prior resistance area. It's very clear. You see we had the close on this green candle back here. I hope you can see where my crosshairs are. That candle closed at 95.33, and you see that it's right in this general area, 95.38. So very similar. So we could continue to hold this area, and in fact, the Kijun Sen could open up higher this week and continue to offer support, or we could come down lower and test the Kijun Sen. So overall, the dollar is still quite bullish, except for the loss of the Tenkan Sen here. So if you want to continue to be bullish the dollar, you want to see the dollar get back over 97.62 in a kind of expedient manner. Otherwise, we could be putting in a topping pattern for the dollar. We have the cloud rising underneath the dollar, and we did actually lose the overbought RSI, which is kind of important. RSI is way down here. I have it really squished, but if I make it bigger, you can see what I'm talking about. So the dollar is no longer overbought at all. But you see, one of the fantastic things about Ichimoku is it is predictive in nature, and it is predictive because the clouds are drawn 26 periods into the future. So we can tell by the shape of the cloud, we can have some clues as to what price action is going to do in the future. So we see that we have a cloud rising, which means that we have rising support, but the cloud sort of flattens out here. So that suggests that the price might continue to rise and then sort of flatten out ahead. All right, let's look at Apple. Apple did see some selling, but then put in a close above the Tenkan Sen, so still fully bullish and made a new high also last week. Fully bullish in Ichimoku terms. In fact, this chart looks beautiful. In fact, I regret not buying this dip on Apple in some way. But we'll see what happens. Let's look at Tesla. So Tesla came out with their home battery news, which was kind of sold at the end of last week. Put in this big spike to the upside and then sold down. So Tesla is still neutral in the cloud, so it should continue to just trade in this range of the cloud until it either breaks out over the top over 244 or loses the cloud to the bottom side. But it is holding the Kijun Sen support inside the cloud for now, so we can't assume any bearishness until we actually see it. I don't know. I think that let's look at the Nikkei. I know I'm eclectic. I'm looking at what I feel like, I guess. Oh, we have 8 viewers now. Thanks for joining me, 8th person. You can watch the archive to catch up from the beginning when I'm done. Nikkei is just bull flagging after tagging the cloud. Very nice buy opportunity there on the Nikkei that I missed personally. 193.73 would have been a nice place to get the long the Nikkei. So until the Nikkei gets back under that level, there's no reason to assume it's not going to go higher. The yen put in a nice move last week. Let's look at the yen. So the yen tried to go higher and then ended up closing underneath the Tenkan-sen. So the yen is still fully in bear territory. This looks like a big bear flag to me. Under everything. No support for the yen currently at the moment. That's about it. I think I will wrap it up. I have some other stuff to do and before the market opens. So thank you for joining me, and I wish you all the best of luck trading this week. If you're interested in learning more about Ichimoku, you're welcome to look at my website at CloudChartist.com, and I do host a chat room where we trade crude, silver, bonds, and other stuff, in a cooperative manner while we all talk about Ichimoku charts and laugh. So you're welcome to come and check out the chat room. I have a trial offer. You can find out more about that on my website at CloudChartist.com. So anyway, thanks again for being here. Take care.